to me at the conference, because she wrote a very wonderful PhD. And I'm very curious about your keynote and your presentation, and hopefully we have around 20 minutes after the keynote for discussion. Thank you so much, Sima.
Thank you for your kind introduction. So I will directly go to my presentation. So first of all, of course, I'm thankful from the organizers of this program for their care and attention for Afghanistan and Afghanistan topic. Before referring to the point that we have on the board, so we have experience of being displaced from our home country. For those that they don't, so let's imagine if you leave your home country and you settle in a country with a new environment, even the word that you hear is not familiar, and even the word that you say is not familiar for the others. Just like the Rumi's poem, which is quite famous by the name of Awaz-e-Nai, or the sound of reeds, which I found it close to my research that I did. And I analyzed just the first verses of that, and I really want to read the original version, which is in Persian. Like it says that بشنو از نی چون شکایت میکند از جدایی ها حکایت میکند. So here in the verses of listen to the reed. Reed here interpret metaphor for root, and root is I interpreted it as a homeland. When someone is displaced and they move from their homeland to another country, as Dr. Samar explained, that it's just cutting from their root and placing in a new country. And the word nai or reed, also it gives the meaning, when someone plays the nai, so the song is the song of separations. And the word wheel in English could be is a metaphor for displacements. That's why I'm really interested to this famous poem from Rumi, and I shared in my research as well. My research topic is about sociolinguistic study of transnational Afghan diaspora in Germany. So this research explores the everyday language practice of transnational Afghan diaspora in Germany with a new linguistic and also social environment. So as we know that immigration of Afghans started many years ago, and they tend to be highly educated and often holding better position in German society. So therefore, there has been a significant increase in immigration, number of immigrants to Germany from Afghanistan in recent years, particularly after the fall of Kabul, as we all are aware of that. So I prefer to do research, and my research examines how diverse language backgrounds influence Afghans' interaction in their everyday life in Germany. And through this study, I examine which language Afghans use to communicate with each other in Germany, and which language is most widely spoken among them, the challenges that the newcomer face in German-speaking society, and the linguistic and social resources that they use. So I have organized my today's talk in three parts. At the first part, I will talk about my research topic, the aim of my research, providing some general information about languages in Afghanistan, and then in the second section, I will introduce my research participants, the main characters of my research, and finally, I will share with you about findings that I have. So in my research, I use some keywords of sociolinguistics. So I really like to talk about the definitions from the scholars like Blumart explains sociolinguistics as the study of language as a complex of resources for their value, distribution, rights of ownership, and reflects it's not the study of an abstract language, but it's a study of concrete language resources in which people make different investments and to which they attribute different value and different value of degrees and also usefulness. And then I use the word of transnational. It's one of the keywords of my research. So now let me explain what transnational immigration means. So according to Smith and Jaworski, transnational immigration refers to the movement of people who maintain strong connection and relationship across national borders. They often means that individuals live in one country while staying actively engaged with their country of their origin. And importantly, transnational immigration isn't just about the people who immigrate, but it also involves who remain in their home country. And together they form a network that influences both personal lives and broader social dynamics. I also explore the concept of translingual. So according to Dovchin and Jolsey, this refers to the movement of individuals across borders who use multiple languages, and in their daily lives it focuses on how these languages how they interact with each other and how these languages influence their social and professional environments. So the concept is particularly important because it highlights the language-based experience of immigrants, including the challenges, discriminations they often face, or for instance, in a monolingual context like job markets or social interactions, it can be especially difficult for translingual immigrants. Understanding these experiences helps us to see the complexity of immigration behind just physical movement of that. So now, based on these definitions of transnational and translingualism, so Afghan diaspora embodies both. So they have families remain in the left behind in their home country in Afghanistan, and also they have relatives living in other countries, and also they have families who alongside live with them in their host country. And at the same time, they're translingual because Afghans are naturally multilingual as we are, and this language ability continues to grow as they travel and adapt to a life in a new country. And this multilingualism becomes an important environment while maintaining connections to the right, to their new host country. About the diaspora, one of the key words that I use is diaspora. I really like Hobo's definition about the diaspora, and it's the term diaspora actually here is close to how I define Afghan diaspora in my research. That's why I really like this definition from Hobo. So because of the shortest time, so I will refer for my research aims. So the aim of my study was to recognize differences in Afghan diaspora language experiences, and also I investigated how multilingualism is practiced and the connection between language use, emotions, and belonging, and how youth and families build social bonds together through use of language. And the aim was to emphasize the ways in which Afghan communities in Germany adopt, connect, and maintain their cultural and also linguistic identities while integrating into a new society. And to evaluate and also understand the social-linguistic realities of transnational Afghan diasporas in the process of integration to a new country, as well as becoming competent members of transnational networks in which both Afghan language as well as English and German language play a role. So it was the aim of my research. So I came with the main research question, and also I have some sub-questions as well. So mainly my main questions was like which multilingual language resources do they use? I mean, Afghan diaspora, and which language, what's the role of English and German in integration process, and also which language practices are common among them, which language problems do they face, and which resources do they use? Do Afghan people use English or German in their daily life in Germany? And what's the role of English in their integration process? And which social context do they have access because of knowing German or English? And also which linguistic practices are common among them? So to go deeper into these areas, to these questions, I aim to uncover the diverse ways that language plays a role in the life of Afghan diaspora in Germany. Why I came the idea came to do research on transnational Afghan diasporas. So as we know that Afghanistan is the origin of one of the largest migratory population in the history, the human history. And on the other hand, the immigration also continued to the European countries, especially to Germany. We have a large number of Afghans. And also, there was limited knowledge about their social linguistic challenges that they face. On the other hand, my personal connection and experience as a member of this community gave me unique insights to their struggles, hopes, and ambitions. And through this research, I shared the untold stories of Afghan diaspora, their efforts to adapt to a new culture, the challenges of rebuilding their lives far from their home, and also the way that they come across with the linguistic and cultural barriers in transnational context. So, as we know that Afghan immigrants differ in terms of generation and immigration experience. Some are first-generation immigrants, while others are part of families who have lived abroad for decades. And also, they also come with a different social, linguistic, and educational backgrounds, which influence their engagement with language and also their integration into the new society. And here I use the word social linguistic and a language behind its name. Which language is correct? Dari, Farsi, or Persian? And in the Q&A section, I want to refer to this part. And also, in my research, I have participants with different educational backgrounds, with different political affiliations and ethnic descents. According to the Constitution of Afghanistan, Article 16, so these are the official languages of Afghanistan, which is mentioned, and two of them are called as an official language. And just to be noted that this claim relates to the 5 years ago. So, in this map of Afghanistan, I highlighted the common language, which illustrates the map of Afghanistan here. So I just colored them in different parts. These are the most of the common languages, but as we know, we have more than these languages highlighted there. So these are the information about the 54 provinces that we have with their own language, with their culture. So this chart shows the name of the provinces, their capitals, and also locations, and their primary ethnic groups and languages. And here, briefly, I want to summarize the historical overview of Afghan immigration in four waves to Germany, as it's already mentioned. So the first wave started in the specific year. So the first wave was just after Second World War. Most of the educated Afghan people came to Germany, and it was the education partnership with the Nejad High School. Later on, this school called as the Amani High School. So most of the Afghan students, they came to universities like Bochum and Bonn. And then large number of people as a businessmen, so they came. The Afghan corporate business was quite famous, and they settled in Hamburg and Frankfurt, and diplomats also preferred to settle in Bonn and also in Berlin. So these early immigrants, they were typically well educated and had clear professional goals. So the second wave started after following the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So a large number of Afghans left the country seeking refuge in Germany, and many were escaped the communist regime on that time. And the third wave was after Afghan Civil War during 1990s. So, and it's followed by 2021. So the number of Afghan population in Germany reached to 71,000. However, in 2005, so the number decreased because of deportation. And then the fourth wave started between 16 until now. So after fall of Kabul in 2021 and return of Taliban, as it's clear, so major wave of immigration occurred. So Afghans settled in different countries, especially in Europe and Germany, particularly Germany. Here in this chart, it shows the number of asylum applications. It's from 2023, the time that I conducted this, and Afghanistan is right on the top of the list after Syria and Turkey. In this map, it shows different cities of Germany and number of Afghans who are settled in different states in Germany, and we have large number of them in cities like Hamburg, Frankfurt, Berlin. So now in this chart, I just provided the overview of Afghan immigration to Germany. It's already explained in the morning session. So we know that the differences between 2016 and 2023, so how the number increased year by year. Now I want to talk about my research participants. So my research participants are from transnational Afghan diaspora in Germany. My first group are German citizens with an Afghan immigration background. I have conducted research with them, and then the second group of Afghan citizens with immigration background, and then I have participants from Afghans with a student's visa. I divided, as I faced with the large number of data, so I categorized them in three groups. I have group of literacy participants, then I faced with a group of people with limited literacy, and even literacy and proficiency and literacy degrees. So my main attention was on this group as well, and my teenage groups. So this is the total number of the participants that I conducted research. Even it was more than 47 participants, but I came with an analyzing of 47 of them. And among my participants, I have one Punjabi speaker, one Afghan Punjabi Afghan participant as well. So my research is qualitative research. I collected my data through qualitative research, through conducting research, through conducting structured questions and also semi-structured questions. And mainly I followed Criswell and Potts theory, and this is the definition of qualitative research from Criswell. And in my research, I analyzed participants' voices from the interview based on the qualitative research first, so I transcribed them. So it was a long journey that I passed during these 4 years. And in the coding, so the coding is just giving a label for each finding. I had my pre-planned topics that I will look to these topics like transnationalism, translingual, multilingualism. And then when I conducted the interview and at the time of analyzing, so I faced with different topics. Later on I will show you. So it means that I had deductive coding approach before, and then I faced with the inductive, and finally I applied mixed, which is called abductive or hybrid coding system. So this is the example that I have from my pre-planned or deductive codes. Like I said, I will look for native language. So then I found these speakers among my participants. I plan to look for multilingualism, transnationalism, language policy, and then in the inductive I faced with the topics like social integration. And integration, I said that simply it will be integration, but among the experience of the participants, I faced with different integration process, like I had social integration, academic integration, the role of English and German, and even professional opportunities for them, and ethnic communication that I will talk about that as well. So this is the group that I conducted. It's my first group of well-educated Afghan diaspora in Germany. Near to 21 participants I have among them. So most of them came through different programs to continue their professional development. And with this group, I conducted interviews in English, mostly in English, and also based on their choice. Farsi Daruz also was one of the languages that I used to conduct interview with this group. And with this educated group, so now I want to share a story of an ethnographic findings from long-term stay and professional transformation in Germany from one of my participants. So in my research, I didn't use their real names. I just used some abbreviations. Like for my first group, I used LP, like literate participant with numbers. This is the experience of my two participants, so who lived in Germany for 55 years. So I first met them in Bremen, and then I met them for more than 2 or 3 times in different states in Germany. And literate participant number 3 was a famous physician in Kabul, and his wife also was a practiced medicine. So together they had a private clinic in Afghanistan, and they had a respected position in local hospital in Afghanistan, and they also had professional successes and financial settled life. And then they decided to leave Afghanistan 35 years ago, and they immigrated to Europe, to Germany, and for better life. So after arriving in Germany, they faced with long and often frustrating process of legal integration. So it took them 12 years to have their documents to be verified, and residence to get the residence permit. He says that I have waited for opportunities, and also then I registered to German classes. So finally, it took time for him. And now he's a taxi driver in Germany, but his dreams come true through his 3 children. So he has 2 sons and 1 daughter. His 2 sons are now, they are students of medical university in Germany, and they say that in Farsi they say that بخاطر یک زندگی بهتر برای فرزندانمان من و همسرم مجبور شدیم از آرزوهای خود بگذریم. اکنون ما امیدها و اهداف خود را در وجود آنها تحقق یافته می‌بینیم. نقل قول مستقیم. This is the verbatim that I used. That is the direct word that he shares. So this is the second group of my participants. The second group was limited literate, and also those people that they were degrees of literation. Among this group, I faced with the participants that they were not ready, or they didn't let me to record their voices because of, I used the word of aura, because they didn't want to share their voices with some strangers. So therefore I spent time in camps and stayed with them, and I had personal conversation, informal interview, and I took notes. Mainly with this group, they have to learn German language in order to integrate well in German society, and mostly they receive help with the family members. This group, my third group, is the teenager group, is the quite successful group, so they don't know about how they integrate in a new country with a new language, so they, even without going to German language classes, so that they directly learn German from school. Their experiences was also a kind of hope, and a kind of hope, especially for the newcomers. They could learn more from this generation as well. And I came up with the findings of which technology resources we could use. Mainly they said that for the beginning they referred to machine translation, and Google translation is quite famous among Afghan diaspora because it covers for C version. In DeepL, so the educated group say that they use DeepL, but in DeepL there is no Farsi languages included in that. Because of this limitation, they refer to Google translation. And then the inner ethnic communication was something different that I found. My different participants, they said they use different languages when they talk with their own community or ethnic groups. So there are ethnic communication between them, And then they use one language when they meet with other Afghans. They use only one language as a lingua franca, so that my finding shows that Farsi is the language that they use to communicate with each other. But when they meet with the Germans or with the international community, so they use either English or German. So English is also English and German is lingua franca, and among Afghan community, Farsi is the lingua franca. And the main finding here is, shows the Sheshmin's statement or theory that I really like, that consider who speaks which language to whom and when, is the fact which happened with my research and also with my research participants, that they use different languages, as I said before, as I explained, so they use different languages in order to communicate and to survive their life in their host country. Yeah, and some findings that I will suggested in my research is like orientation centers for newcomers in every city. If they provide such kind of orientation centers, that these orientation centers organized by Afghans will be quite helpful, because the newcomers need someone who speaks their language and who helps them in their integration process. Even there are, but the number is not enough. And then introducing German classes based on level of the people. It means that in German classes, as I also attended these classes, there are people with different language abilities and different people with different professional backgrounds. It will be better if they divide them in different classes. And for example, doctors could learn language through their own field of study, and engineers could learn German language through their own field of study. And German for specific purpose classes are quite important to consider. And job opportunities also for them, like Afghan immigrant offices. So they should just give opportunities for them. German government is open for Afghans to give job for them, and these Afghans could support newcomers. And I really like Rيچارد's moral monitoring, which says that we should not only focus on the language skills, but we can look to their abilities to integrate. It means if a doctor comes from Afghanistan, he or she can work as a doctor in Germany. Why he or she should change his field of study because of being unfamiliar to a new language, especially at the first years. And at the end, as I talked about the barriers, but still I emphasize on learning the language, I share some proverbs like Isa says that Sprache ist der Schlüssel der integration, so language is the key for integration. And Chinese proverb says to learn a language is to have one window from which we can look the world. And also I have shared proverb from my father who says if you know one language, you are one person, and if you know two languages, so you are two people. And then Nicolas Mandela famous says that if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. And if you talk to him in a language that his language, it goes to his heart. Yeah, thank you for your attention. It was
thank you so much.
Yeah.
So we have some more minutes for discussion.
Okay, great.
Is there any?
I try to keep it short, even the conducting the research was a long journey. Even they said there is no due date to finish PhD research, so I tried my best to finish that in these 4 years, and it was not an easy time for me. So I came with all the stress that we all had, and directly I started my research. Of course, I had all these barriers and worries in my head. And besides my main research, I wrote some topics about Afghan women's situation in Afghanistan. I have an article about non-Karazadi, so I analyzed these slogans in my article, and recently I wrote an article about from underground classes to online classes, so somehow I try to share their voices as well through my research. Now I look for your questions.
Thank you so much. Just one maybe remark. You know, the Germans are crazy about their language. We have these 3 articles for, you know, why ever. And whenever we make a, you know, big reform of our grammar, this is untouchable. It is still there, die, das, and there is no logic behind it. It's extremely, extremely difficult to learn from everybody. And inside, this is really typical German habit, inside of the German brains, there is automatically a teacher which tells you this is das, der, or die. So we correct everybody automatically almost. This is maybe the genetic defect. I don't know.
Right.
It's very hard.
To follow what you said, that's my third group, the teenage group, so they just learn the language. Even they use articles in a great way.
So any questions, remarks, any experiences you want to share? Start here.
Thank you.
سلام به همگی، علی موسوی هستم. میخواستم از شما پرسان بکنم که آیا تجربه‌ای در جریان تحقیق داشتیم با کودکانی که در سنین کودکی یا نوجوانی آمدن یا کسایی که اینجا متولد شدن؟ چه تفاوت‌هایی وجود داره؟
بله، تشکر از سوالتان. و سوالتان بیخی مربوط به بخش از یافته‌های میشه. May I answer that in English or first?
You can.
Okay, English. Yes, I had participants that they are part of my lecture group, but they talked about their childhood period that they came to Germany and they integrated and the easy way that they had, and they learned new language without going to the language classes. And beside that, they shared one interesting experience that they had. They played the role of translator in their family. That I used the word of I used the lingua franca, and also it comes to my mind. So it's a technical word for that. Language brokering. So they become the language broker in their family, and still they say they're proud to do this, but on the other hand, it's a lot of pressure for them because they face with the topics like their health condition of their parents, that their parents don't want their child to know about their health condition, or some legal conditions. Like one of the participants talked about the divorce process happened between his parents, and he was the one who translated, and he always blames himself of playing this role.
فقط کوتاه به خاطر اینکه اون تجربه‌ای که کسایی که معمولا اینجا به دنیا میاد تقریبا میشه گفت که زبان مادری از دست میدن. بگذارم.
تشکر بسیار زیاد. در تحقیقات بعدی من در نظر دارم که درباره language maintenance تحقیق کنم. It's my future research that I want to focus on language maintenance. Somehow they say that luckily I faced with the families that their children, they keep their mother language, but this is the fact that most of them, they lost their first language, And we as a community, we should, it's our responsibility in our family to speak with our native language with our children and try to keep it,
One more question.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Samira Bazukharan. I come from Iran, but I'm a feminist and human rights activist. And also I'm a social consultant, and I work also in so-called language cafes for all the migrants, but a big group of them are Afghan people. And I have noticed that Yes, since 2021, as also in all the research that I heard, that the number of women has increased. First of all, I wanted to ask, what is the reason that after 2021 we have an increase in number of women that come from Afghanistan? And second, still, the number of Afghan women, in at least in the language courses that I'm directing, are in comparison to Afghan men very low. And I also wanted to know
their numbers.
Yeah, their numbers. Yeah. So, what are the reasons? How can we motivate or more Afghan women to participate in these courses that are free of charge? And and also a follow-up question. Sorry, there are three questions to what Mr. Musavi asked. Do you think it is enough if just in the community, that if parents or just the community work on language learning of, the first language of Afghan or Iranian children, that they don't lose their language, their first language, because that would be really sad.
Yeah, right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions. So refer to the first question, why the number of male immigrants were larger than female. As we know, we have different ways of immigration. There was legal and illegal. In illegal process, because I had working background with German government, and then the supervisor said in which city or in which state you are. She didn't know that, and she told me that I asked the person who was standing on me, and I told him where we are. He told that we are in Kaufland. And she said that I told her my supervisor that I'm in Kaufland, and she thought that Kaufland is the name of a state because she didn't know the language, and it was even the question that was asked was not strictly transferred to the person who answered. And about the group of mentioning the native language, of course, community is responsible for that, and people are working. I don't say that there's no one caring about that, but there are a group of people that they are working on that, but still we need support of German government to at least in their medium of instruction, like Turkish languages somehow in Berlin is used as a medium of instruction based on choice of children. If they prefer, they can have at least one language in their first language, and there are some suggestions in Berlin. It's going on to include, if I just heard that include the Farsi Dari also. So it's just the process is going on, but still we need support of German government in this area. But even if we try to keep our native language, the example that I have in my family, still we face with some words that my son used, but I do not know. But I say that, what do you mean? Could you just repeat? Even I know that, so I repeated that, and I tried to fix him to remember the correct word in native language.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We are already 5 minutes late, I'm sorry. But please, if you have further questions, ask Sima. So I'm very glad and happy to introduce very shortly Maya Stefan. She's a professor for trans-regional Central Asian Studies, right? Great. And one of the OLIMs of the German Academy at Humboldt University, which is very famous. I'm very glad that you are here. And now these two keynotes fit perfectly together, and we could have some insights into this cultural dimension of diaspora.
Yeah, we switched to this screen, as I found out. Thanks for being here still. It's very hot, and after this wonderful lunch, thank you for this as well. I know it's very hard to stay, and also to stay attentive, so thank you very much that you were here, and also I would like to thank you that I have the opportunity to speak here today about a project which is currently underway, Collaborative Poetics, Berlin Belonging, and we switch from Rumi's poems to collaborative belonging, and so we stay with poetry in a way. And a project which combines academic, artistic, lyrical, and civil society perspectives, and which I situate within the field of Afghanistan-related post-migration and diaspora studies. The project is guided by the core principles of collaboration and participation. So it's no longer about primarily doing basic research on Afghan migration and diaspora, but it's rather about understanding and practicing research as a kind of form of engagement. So it means there's a shift from studying about to studying people from the diaspora. On the basis of these premises, the project fits well in the fields of post-disciplinary area studies, public humanities, community-based research, artistic research, co-production of knowledge, and last but not least, participatory action research. So I will begin briefly by introducing the project, explaining how it came about, describing what has emerged so far, and outlining some very initial findings. I should also mention that this is the first opportunity to report on the project process, and my talk, I do not understand my talk, therefore it's a keynote, but it's rather a workshop style report, so all the more I look forward also to get your feedback on how to proceed with this project. So let's start. So Berlin Belonging is a collaborative project that brings together students from the Institute of Asian and African Studies at Humboldt University Berlin and young poets who have fled Afghanistan and now live in Berlin through poetic dialogues. Through writing-based workshops and public readings of poems and short stories, followed by discussions, spaces are created for exchange, for collaborative autobiographical writing, and for reflecting on academic concepts. The project's goal is to build connections between the Afghan exile and diaspora community, the university, and Berlin's urban society. The focus of this project is on the themes of migration, belonging, participation, social and also political participation, as well as on forms of living together in the super-diverse urban context of Berlin. Drawing on the unifying power of poetry, the project asks what connects us, what does Berlin mean to us, what holds us together in the city, what stories do we share, and what future do we want to shape together. Through poetic dialogues, we learn from another. By telling stories, listening, and writing together, new perspectives on belonging, participation, and coexistence, social and cultural, in Berlin emerge. So, just a few words about our key partner. The Poetry Project Berlin is a literary project that has been in existence since 2015, and that guides young people from Afghanistan, Syria, and Ukraine in creative writing. The initial impetus was to help young refugees process their experiences of flight, loss, dislocation through poetry, and to find their own voice in which they can speak about themselves, their experience, and to engage with the host society. The result is a poetic archive of Germany's most recent immigration history, an archive that continues to grow because the majority of these refugees remain in Germany. So the question is also, is it about diaspora, is it about exile, or what is it about post-migration? If that's a question we can discuss later. So an archive that continues to grow, as I said. Accordingly, the themes explored through poems in the Poetry Project have evolved from initial topics such as flight, arrival, loss, and homeland to post-migrant themes like belonging, life, and living together in Berlin, including also future perspectives and visions. The Poetry Project has led by Susanne Krause, a Spieler, writer, and foreign correspondent who has long covered Afghanistan. So, just some words about the poets with whom we work together in the project Berlin Belonging. The poets represent a broad cross-section of Afghanistan society, They come from all regions of the country, speak Dari and or Pashto. What unites them, aside from their affinity for writing, is that they all arrived in Germany at a very young age, between 12 and 17 years old. Many migrated alone, others with their families, and many via stopover countries such as Iran, where they had already experienced life as refugee or exiled people. So there are, to the best of my knowledge, about 40 young poets from Afghanistan working with the poetry project at the moment. And the majority of these young people have settled very well in Germany. They attend welcome classes, they are learning German, and they write in German. They are in vocational training, studying, or already working. Many write their poems in Dari, but some also write in German. So, some words about the students and project. The student participants include undergraduate and graduate students in area studies, as well as PhD students. Many bring with them their own migration experience or heritage background. The majority of the student participants have an interest in Afghanistan and Central Asia, and some of them also learn Dari. So, exactly for this reason, alongside the other project activities, collaborative translations of poems from Dari in German are also being produced under the guidance of Roswell Shia, everyone knows him, and integrated into historic language classes. A publication of this translation is planned. So, a very brief overview of what happened so far in the project and what we did in this summer semester. So, we conducted research-based seminars, also a student tutorial. We had workshops in creative and lyrical writing that was led by the poets themselves. And we also had different formats of public readings with discussions where we tried to reach different kind of audiences in the Berlin urban society. The public readings and discussions aimed to raise the profile of poetry by young Afghans, but also of the project itself. And at the same time, we provided a space for dialogue with Berlin's wider city community through poetry, whilst also increasing visibility and fostering connectedness between other Afghan diaspora organizations at the one hand, as well as between Berlin-based PhD students and artists who had fled Afghanistan. As you see on the right, we had an interesting dialogue between poetry, arts, and science in an Afghan organization in Berlin. So, very briefly about the background, the contract of the project and how it came into being, because this is at least important for my understanding of how I deal with the project and what does it mean to me as one participant among others. So the project was prompted by two factors. First, in the light of the current global situation, there is an urgent need from the university to better convey our students the urgency of new area studies expertise and to open up opportunities for them to apply, contribute, and deepen their new area studies knowledge, not only in regard to career perspectives, but also in regard to social engagement. So this applies particularly to language skills acquired in the university, which can no longer be applied and deepened through travel to the region, which is the case in Afghanistan. But the shift towards diaspora studies is also particularly urgent for another reason. There are many Afghans now living in Germany, and in Berlin alone 25,000. And if we take into account people of Afghan heritage background, which are not citizens of Afghanistan, the number is even higher. So they are with us, they are alongside us, they shape society in Germany. It is therefore absolutely essential to engage with these people, not at least to correct the stereotyped images of Afghanistan portrayed in Germany's media, politics and society, but also, of course, to get a better understanding of these people's livelihoods and livelihoods in Germany. So, but there is a but. The Afghan diaspora in Germany is not a testing ground for new area studies students who need research training. Furthermore, gaining access to the Afghan diaspora community is quite different from classical anthropological research, where the field is there, but not here. So what the students in our research seminars quickly realized was when it came to accessing the field and approaching people, linguistic barriers were just as important to address as research efforts. For example, we struggled with questions like, how do we strike up a conversation and with whom? Who represents what and whom? What are we allowed to ask? And why should these people talk to us at all? Alongside issues of access, communication, the ethics of conversation, and the legitimacy of the research, one question played a very specific role. What can we give back to our research partners? And here we are within a larger context of responsible diaspora research. And I do not want to go into detail because it takes a long time. We all are tired, and also Alfredo was in the room already this morning. So we are following the principles of participatory action research. So another issue was that there are boundaries existing between the university and the Afghan community. So we experience them as two very distinct social spaces with at time hardly any overlap. So how can these boundaries be overcome, and what exactly does the university mean by its so-called third mission, means reaching out into society? Another issue that was mentioned in the previous talk today was the concepts that concern identity. So what does Afghan mean in Afghan diaspora? And so the associated struggles over the use of politically correct terms, should we call it Afghan, Afghanish, Afghanistanish, Afghanis, so terms that given the great diversity of the Afghan diaspora community in Germany cannot do justice to anyone. So it quickly became clear that research regarding the Afghan diaspora can only proceed or happen through a collaborative format. And we took it a step further, in addition to shifting from studying about to researching with. Our project also applies the principle of learning from. So here we are with collaborative projects. And we introduced the concept. The term was adapted from Johnson et al., a participatory, artistically oriented research group. Based on the idea that poetry is simultaneously art, a research method, and an epistemic practice that generates insights through collaboration, this research group explored experiences of discrimination and exclusion through autobiographic poetic approaches. We have adopted this approach and understand poetry as a form of collaborative storytelling that equally incorporates the personal experiences of all those involved in the project, and the result is a series of poetic dialogues that facilitate a multi-directional exchange of knowledge between academia, art, literature, and our Afghan diaspora community, as well as Berlin's early society. So we refer to this dialogical practice as epistemic reciprocity. This is a working concept that builds on established ideas such as epistemic justice, ecologies of knowledge, or epistemic plurality. And we mean by epistemic reciprocity a form of collaborative knowledge production in which all participants act simultaneously as researchers, narrators, and subjects of knowledge. Knowledge, in this case, is not transferred, but mutually generated through poetic dialogue. So I'm done with this very complicated epistemological and methodological issues. And let's turn to the role of poetry, because this is really interesting and important. So our project draws on the potential inherent in poetry as an artistic medium that operates within the true language. So lyrical writing in the context of migration and diaspora, and also beyond this spheres, does a lot. It enables one to find a voice or to speak out in order to combat speechlessness speechlessness, voicelessness, or to make the unspoken or the unspeakable expressible. Lyrical writing generates narrative agency with an emphasis on the self-determination to decide what is told and in what words. It creates empowerment and it has healing effects, strengthens resilience, and produces knowledge through the processes of writing, reading, listening, speaking. So, and last but not least, and this is a very important aspect, that poetry also proved to be a suitable form of storytelling in the project because it plays a vital role in the foundation of cultural identity and the vitality of Afghanistan society in the context of migration. So we are thus working with a culturally familiar medium that at its philosophical core is about our thing, the art of questioning as a continuous process of discovering truth and achieving a deeper knowledge about what it means to be human in the world. So in this sense, poetry permeates all areas of artistic, social, and political life. It is formed of, and this therefore can be understood as a form of embodied, inherited, or experiential knowledge, as well as a culturally accepted practice for articulating even the unspeakable. And Sina, a poet and journalist who will meet later, put it in this way: poetry works like Facebook. If you feel freer to express your own thoughts in poetic form, especially as a woman from Afghanistan. Okay. So, this is very briefly about the project. The question we are now dealing with is what to do with the poetic archive we created and what is it about. So, in the course of the project, an open knowledge repository has emerged that documents, organizes and prepares the processes and results of this multi-directional exchange of knowledge for further processing. So, for example, a website is being developed that will initially serve primarily to raise the profile of the project, its participants and the results of the project, to create visibility through text, podcasts, videos, posters, and at the same time, an archive is being created that encompasses various types of data, such as poems, scholarly texts, transcribed reflections, and discussions from research seminars, audio and video recordings of public events, and notes containing narrative stories, poets' biographies, ethnographic observations. So it's really a lot. And because the project has 3 different dimensions, I don't want to go into detail but say it quickly. It has an artistic, creative level, and socio-political level, and an academic level. We also struggle with some kinds of methodology, with research ethics, and also with what to do, how to use poetry as a data, so how to transfer it back to academic discourses. And one of a major question is, how to do research with poetry. So how does poetry can serve or function as a kind of data? And how to use it? What can we learn from poetry? And how can we use it when we write articles, for example? Not because at first hand poetry is not kind of classical or ethnographic data. So in the remaining time, the last part of my presentation, I will share some very initial findings related to the project's core themes: migration, belonging, and social and political participation. And we start with the meaning, the role of writing in exile. So, and writing here means a process, a practice, and also the results for it. I brought quotes from 3 poets. I will shortly introduce it to you. The first one is Shashmeen, who was born in Mazar-e-Sharif in 2000, and as the only son, fled to Germany at the age of 15 and nearly drowned in the Mediterranean. He now works in the accident and emergency department at the Berliner Charité. Yasser Sada, who was born in the Panjshir Valley in 2002, by went into exile in Iran with his parents, came to Germany alone at the age of 13, and is currently in professional training in Berlin. Mahnaz Jafari was born in Rasen. She has lived in Berlin since 2014, where she studies law and advises refugees on asylum and residence law. For these three poets, writing is a form of empowerment, an artistic process that helps them emotionally to emotionally process migration, flight, and exile in order to find a sense of belonging. As Shah articulated it, der Schmerz muss auf die Blätter, the pain must be put down on paper. Writing makes it possible to work through the pain in order to find a sense of belonging in Berlin, to accept what they've experienced in their situation, their new situation, and to settle down, to settle into their new lives. So closely related to this is expressing oneself through writing, finding one's own voice, to tell one's story, and to be a real witness to one's experiences, or as Cesar puts it, be by my side and see what has happened to me. It's over, but the scars or the traces remain in my heart. Poetry, one can say, is the means of coping and building identity as a cultural resource in strange resilience, and it also may increase capability, opportunities for self-realization in the context of migration, as Mahnaz explained to us. Writing in Germany led me to pursue my studies. Writing means continuing to grow. Essential question in the project was, what does Berlin mean to us? Again, essential question in the project was, what does Berlin mean to me, and what does Berlin do to me? Many poets describe Berlin as a place where one finds peace, as a place where one can dream or experience very vibrant and strong, also touching dreams. Dreams and the related idea of dream work create a form of imaginative agency, as Nasifullah puts it. In my dream, anything is possible. In my Träumen ist alles möglich. Nasifullah Naziri was born in Kabul in 2000. He studied social science at Kabul University, but due to political upheaval in Afghanistan, was unable to complete his studies. In Afghanistan, he also worked as an English teacher for children. At the end of 2022, he came to Germany on his own. For Nasifullah, poetry became a bridge, leading him to the Poetry Project Berlin and to people who, like him, live through words. So, at the same time, Berlin turns out to be a space of possibility and a safe space to imagine the future, one's own, that of one's homeland, and that of Berlin. For others, Berlin is a place of freedom, freedom to write, to develop a voice, or to speak out. However, and simultaneously, many poets, the majority of them, we say, to be honest, associated Berlin with shared experience of alienation, exclusion, and discrimination. So the poems also become a mirror reflecting the immigrant community in Germany and how one might contribute to it and find one's place within it. So, as Mahnaz explained, belonging is hard work. And what do we give up to fit in somewhere? So we can sum up this topic with poetry can also mean practice of placemaking. The Berlin Belonging Project focused on the life path of after arriving. Here I have to switch into German because the English term cannot express what we can say in German, because there's Ankommen und Angekommen sein, so very different stages. So we focused on the life path of nach dem Angekommen sein. Many of the poets from Afghanistan are now studying, completing vocational training, working as authors. They lead writing workshops and have won awards for the poetry with which they are shaping the German literary landscape. They are no longer migrants or refugees. They belong to Germany and to Berlin, and they bring post-migrant perspectives to Berlin's urban society. A central theme here is that writing fosters a sense of belonging through social or political participation, and to make a contribution to shape living together in Berlin. So let's turn to Sina, which I have to introduce you. Sina Farahman was born in Kabul in 1995, where she studied Persian language and literature at university and received numerous awards as a critical journalist. She has been living in Berlin as a freelance journalist since 2020. So let's read what Sina told us. It takes a lot of strength and hard work to break down prejudice and racism. Berlin gives me the space to write. I see writing as my responsibility to break down racism. It is also up to us. We need to become stronger ourselves in order to break down prejudice. This is insofar interesting because I think it was in the presentation on Afghan diaspora in Switzerland, there was this note that there is this idea that integration has to be an individual an individual responsibility. And reading this now against this background, I thought, oh, this is interesting to see how probably this poet has already taken out and internalized the German discourse on integration and the expectations that are associated with it. So I learned already something. Thank you very much for this. And for Sina, writing opens up the door to German society and enables her to participate by expressing her opinion and contributing to society through her poems. However, personal responsibility for Sina is even broader. With her poems, she does not merely seek to help shaping German society. She also sees herself as raising her voice for women in Afghanistan and in the diaspora who are unable to speak for themselves. Obviously, Sina's self-understanding as an author underscores the political activist dimension poetry has. Taking action, helping to shape society, bearing social responsibility correspond to Hannah Arendt's definition of action, political action, which she defines in Vita Activa as the starting point of political activity. For Hannah Arendt, speech and action form the cornerstone of political activity. I quote her, "To act in the most general sense means to take an initiative, to begin, and to set something into motion." So, poetry can also be a form of activism that fosters political participation. And here, I'm with my last kind of finding when it comes to language, which is probably one of the most important aspects in the project and in this poetic dialogue. Because language appeared in the poetic archive as a key theme in combination with identity, memory making, cultural resilience, but also as the ability to express oneself in diaspora. So, let me quote Razia, who comes from Razi province, holds a law degree, and has been living in Berlin for 3 years. So, Razia does not consider herself a poet, but loves to express her feelings and memories through poetry. Razia feels a strong connection to the Persian poetic tradition. And with this quote, I can't see I have to go here because I did not write it. I don't read it. Words are my home. They allow me to put my feelings down on paper and bring my memories to life within me. Words convey feelings of home, culture, and belonging. In words, culture and identity get carried with us, passed on and preserved here in Germany. And then, so we have poetry as a kind of here the last quote is interesting in this case. In writing, meaning often lies between the words. So poetry asks, what is important? I come to an end. However, while language might enable participation in society, it at the same time can also produce experiences of exclusion and discrimination. And to illustrate this last point, I have brought a poem for you, with which I would like to conclude my talk. The poem is titled as Fremdwörter and was written by Mariam Khalibi. Mariam was born in Kabul in 2007. Her family roots extend back to the Banya region, and at the age of 15, she came to Germany, the place she describes as the place between languages and times, where words began to renegotiate her identity. So her poem speaks to the power that language holds over identity, to multilingualism, and to the politics of language. And I will quote this poem in German because this is the original language that the poem is written. But I brought some English versions for those who do not understand German. I think it won't be enough, but maybe we can share. And I will read the poem and then I will conclude. I hope you can understand me. Is it okay? Can I speak loud? Wir sitzen im Unterricht, die Lehrerin verteilt die Blätter, sie sagt, sucht nach Fremdwörtern. Ich bleibe still, ich kenne sie alle, ich bin eins. Ich bin das Wort, das keiner laut liest, aus Angst, es falsch zu sagen. Ich bin das Wort, das unterstrichen wird, doch nie verstanden. Das man überspringt, weil es stört, weil es anders klingt, weil es sich nicht reimt. Ich bin das Wort, das nicht in deinem Muttermund steht. Das fremde Wort in einem Gedicht. Zu kompliziert, zu vielschichtig, zu sehr dazwischen. Ich bin ein Fremdwort. Nicht falsch, nur nicht angewöhnt. Und manchmal nicht gewollt. Ich bin ein Fremdwort. Aber nicht so wie Chaos, nicht wie Déjà-vu, das du sagst, ohne nachzudenken. Ich bin kein Klischee, kein Souvenir. Ich bin Hab, aber nicht deine Erde, nur die mir fehlt. Ich bin Artasch, ich bin Jod, eine Erinnerung, die mir jede Nacht wach hält. Ich bin da, ein Fremdwort, das du nicht brauchst, um den Text zu verstehen. Und vielleicht, wenn meine Definition dich interessieren würde, könnte ich sie dir erklären. Okay, I'm done with my presentation. Thank you very much.
Go straight to the discussion.
Thank you very much. I don't have any question. I come from Potsdam. I attend this project because we have in Potsdam every year multicultural weeks. In September, we invite 4 women from Afghanistan, Iran, Syria, and Ukraine. All women are telling the same things. All women have a common word as refugee coming on. It's a nice project.
Yeah.
I hope that it's going forward.
Thank you for this comment. Any more questions?
I can give a comment.
First of all, I think the last one is very meaningful, if you understand it, because we have in school something like that, like Pakistan every year. I think it's a very, very good way to express the feelings you have, or to express the, how should I say, what you think, what you can't explain to anybody. Like, for example, for teenagers, it's a very, very good way to express everything. And I think this project was very good. Thank you.
Impressive project. I really admire your work. And my question is actually about the young migrants that have experience working with them. If we look at one way, how can we help this new generation adapt into the community without feeling lost or without feeling, oh, I'm stuck? As someone mentioned before, that sometimes the new generation or the young generation feels stuck between both communities. We feel like, oh, I'm here or I'm there. I know it's a long question, but if we look at one way, how could we help? Or how, yeah, one way to, like ourselves or myself, to the new person who came and I was like, oh yeah, if you go that way, it will feel better and you don't feel lost. Not, yeah.
I think now I'm answering not for the Berlin Belonging Project, because this is a collaboration with the Poetry Project, but I answer through the eyes of Knowledge Poetry Project, because we are working very closely together, and I think the answer is already given by the Poetry Project, because through writing, I said that writing is a kind of empowerment, and it gives the people the possibility to deal with this in-betweenness. And today we had also the presentation about the diaspora community in Switzerland, and mental health issues were a very big problem, very big issue. And I think writing really helps these people to find the balance. And as Shaza said, pain must be put on the paper. So, and sorry, I have to say this. Yeah, please. We have a kind of tension in the project, because from an academic or scientific perspective, the students, they feel an unease to ask the people, tell me your experience when you had to cross the Mediterranean Sea. So because there are so many discourses right now on political correctness, criminal harm, and so on and so forth. But the people from the Poetry Project, they think completely differently. You have to go into the pain and speak it out, and then it will become better. And this was also what poets told me, that it was very difficult for them to sit down, to write down what they experienced, but this kind of witnessing, talking about it, someone has to listen, and then creating some kind of empathy or understanding had really a kind of, I would not say healing effect, but it helped. Yeah, because if you tell your story, you feel better because anyone else can hear it. And I think this is my answer. So, if I can say this, I also ask this question. So, if we do a research, we can study only the moments that we do the research. Yeah, so the poetry works and so people. And I ask, so how many people are staying with you? How many people get lost in the course of the poetry project? And the answer was that almost no one, I don't know, went away or so. Everyone stayed in the project, so I think it's very helpful. Right. Yeah, and also to speak out then, yeah, what you like, because it's also different writing and reading. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maya, for this great presentation. I really love this book.
Yeah, I would say Maya.
It's very insightful. Okay, so thank you again, Maya. Okay. Now we have half an hour break, and I know it's warm, so let's turn this conference into a challenge. Now it turns out who's really strong. Means who will survive the workshops. There are 4 workshops in half an hour. We will meet here, and then we will just shortly present what's going on in these workshops, and then you can select one for you, and then we can go from there. In half an hour, 4 p.m.